So, good morning, everyone. Today is May 19, 2022, and it's already 9 a.m. in the morning. So, before we proceed to our main goal, which is the discussion part, a reminder for all of you, my dear student. If your microphone is malfunctioning, use our chat box to answer my questions. And if you are capable of opening your camera while we're having this session, it's much appreciated. If it's not, and that's okay. So before we proceed to our next lesson, I would like to ask, what is the last topic that we discussed? Anyone?
Ma'am, we discussed about the examples of suggestion and advice through providing the examples.
Okay. How about you, Miss De La Paz? Miss De La Paz?
Let us to create our dialogue using modal verbs that you provide to distinguish the differences of each.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, let's take a look at this conversation that I made. So, who wants to be Hyosam and Hatoki? You can choose between the two.
I can be Hyosam.
Okay, Miss Bajardos will be Hyosam and Miss De La Paz will be Hatoki. So now that you already choose, you can begin the conversation now. So I'll start first. Two friends are trying to decide what to do for the weekend. By making suggestion and advice, Ryosam and Hatoki make a decision that they're both happy with. So listen carefully to this dialogue and list down all the modal verbs that used in the conversation. You can begin now.
Hi, Hatoki. Would you like to do something with me this weekend?
Sure, what shall we do?
Coffee date, museum date, or beach date? Choose of the three you want.
Let's have museum date together, then let's have some iced coffee afterwards.
That's a nice idea. Just pick me up here in our house around 8 a.m. in the morning.
Okay, should I bring my driver's license or you be the one who will drive?
No need, I'll bring mine. I ought to ask my parents' permission before we left the house.
Me too. We shouldn't forget to wear sunscreen before we left.
We had better check the car so that it's safe to drive long. You know, safety first before anything else.
By the way, I couldn't bring any credit card. But okay.
Yeah, sure. Shall I cook some pancakes for our breakfast before we travel?
I couldn't ask for more. Just for that you need to bring.
Okay. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Okay, thank you so much for reading. Now, I would like to ask, what do you observe from the conversation? Anyone?
After having conversation with Ella, I noticed that it used different kind of modal verbs which are ought to, had better, should, could, would, and shall.
Okay. How about
I also I also observe using affirmative, negative, and question form of modal verbs.
Okay, so that's a very nice observation, people. So good job. Now, you already know those modal verbs that we used. I have a list of modal verbs and subject and main verb. So take a look at this slide. So would you mind reading, Miss Pajardo?
We, I, she, clean, wash, bring, as, would, should, shouldn't, couldn't, shall, ought to, had better.
Okay, thank you so much. So give your attention here. I'll make my own example through these words. Then you're going to tell me if my example is correct or not. So remember, the pattern that I follow is SMV, SMVV, or MVSP, which is subject, modal verb, main verb, or modal verb, subject, and the main verb. So take a look at this example. Miss De La Paz, would you mind reading?
I should clean my study. Should I clean my study area?
Okay, is my examples are correct?
Yes, ma'am, because as what I also observed from the conversation earlier, modal verbs are used in three forms, which are affirmative, negative, and a question form.
Okay. Aside from Miss Fajardo answer, another answer, Miss De La Paz?
Ma'am, we follow the pattern which is subject comes first before the modal verb followed by the main verb in affirmative form. While the second examples are in questions form, which is modal verb comes first before the subject and followed by the main verb.
Okay, thank you so much. So we already said earlier that the first pattern that we use is subject, modal verb, and the main verb, which is clean, right? I is for the subject, should is for the modal verb, and clean is for the verb. For another one, examples is modal verb comes first before the subject. What is the subject here? Anyone? Is it I, right? So modal verb comes first before the subject. What is modal verb? Should. And the main verb is clean. So did you understand the pattern that we used?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much for responding. So as what I said earlier, the pattern is subject comes first before the modal verb and followed by main verb. And another one, when you're making a questions, modal verb comes first before the subject and followed by the main verb. From the negative and affirmative form, it's just the same pattern. It's difference when in making a question form. Do you understand? So,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, thank you so much for responding. So now, can you provide another example using the pattern of subject, modal verb, followed by the main verb in affirmative form? While the second example is modal verb, which is in a question form, modal verb, subject, and the main verb. I'll give you 2 minutes to think and your timer start now. Just remember, just open your microphone if you're done answering. Okay? Remember the pattern that I always emphasize, right?
Ma'am, I'm done na po.
Okay. So, Ms. De La Paz, would you mind answering?
We shall clean the house right now, and should I ask for more rice at this fast food joint?
Okay. So, what is the modal verb we use in this example?
Ma'am, shall and should, and I follow the patterns subject, main verb, then verb, and modal verb, subject, modal verb, and modal verb, subject, and verb. Because I also made the question form.
Okay. Very good. So, what else? Yes, Miss Pajardo, I know you're raising your hand.
She shouldn't bring her pets here in a crowded area, and I had better wash the dishes before Mama comes home.
Okay, so what is the subject of your examples? Does it in a question form?
The subject are I and she. It's not in the question form. It is in the negative form because the modal verb that I use is in the negative form.
Okay, that's an I answer. Well done, everyone. So now that you already know the pattern in creating the suggestions and advice, I want you to create your own examples of suggestion and advice, which is the activity time. So it can be in affirmative, negative, and a question form. Just remember, once again, the pattern. Okay? I'll give you 3 minutes to make your own just two examples. So your timer start now. Once again, just open your mic when you are done answering, okay? Are you done, my dear student?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Miss De La Paz, what is your answer in our activity?
Here's my examples, ma'am. Anna shouldn't cry for receiving lower scores in exams. The second one is, could you buy me medicines?
Okay, wait for a while. I'm going to type it here so that everyone will see your example. Okay? Anna shouldn't cry for receiving lower scores in exam.
Scores in exams.
The next example is, could you buy me
Buy me medicines.
medicines? Okay. So take a look at these two examples that Miss De La Paz made. So what is the subject here? It is the Anna, right? So before I explain it, would you mind explaining first your answer, Miss De La Paz?
Yes, ma'am. I used Anna for the subject. Shouldn't is in a negative form and cry is the main verb. Well, the second example, the modal verb comes first, which is could because it is in a question form. We say earlier that in question form, the modal verb comes first, followed by the subject.
Okay, thank you so much. So we already used this pattern, right? So the subject here is Anna. Let's highlight this one, Anna, and the modal verb is shouldn't. And what is the main verb? Cry, right? For the second one, modal verbs comes first before the subject. So modal verb is the could. Okay, great. And you is the subject. And by is the main verb. Is it correct? Is it correct, people? Okay, thank you for responding. So the next example, Miss Pajardo.
Yes, ma'am. My
Okay.
example is JC ought to play online games once in a while. Then the second one is she must study hard to maintain in president's list.
Okay, wait for a while. Games once in a while. The other example is she must
Study hard to maintain in president's list.
study hard to maintain and president list. So before I explain it also, would you mind explaining your examples, Miss Parda?
Sure, ma'am. The subject of these two examples are she and JC. The modal verbs are ought to and must, and the main verb are play and study. As you notice, it is an affirmative form. That's why I use the S, F, B, and B pattern. Aside from that, O2 is not commonly used in a negative form.
Okay, thank you so much. So, like this first example, JC is the subject, like what Miss Pajardo explained, right? I just highlighted it for you to be able to understand more. Modal verb is also, and play is the main verb. So the next one is she is the subject. Once again, the subject is she. Must is the modal verb. Am I right? And the main verb is study. So we also learn the pattern, right? So now we already know what the pattern and how to create the suggestion and advice. So I am really glad that you took a lot away from our discussion. So through explaining your examples that you are provided. So before we conclude, do you have any clarification or takeaway from our lesson today? Anyone?
As what you discussed earlier, ma'am, in making suggestion and advice, you teach us the pattern and the appropriate usage of modal verbs.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Pajardo. How about you, Miss De La Paz?
Ma'am, in addition to what Miss Fajardo says, doesn't be confused when it is in affirmative, negative, and question form. In the affirmative and negative form, the subjects remain followed by the modal verb of positive or negative, which is subject, modal verb, then main verb. While in question form, vice versa, the modal verb comes before the subject and is followed by the main verb, which is modal verb, subject, and main verb.
Okay, thank you so much. And Good job, everyone. So I know you listened very carefully in our discussion. So that's the end of our discussion for today. I am really glad, and I'm just going to send the assignment in our MS Teams. Okay? So thank you so much, everyone, and God bless. Goodbye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Goodbye and thank you po.